So recently, this morning, which is very recent by the way, I woke up, I was going to get a lot of work done. That was my entire goal. I had an entire schedule set up. However, a couple mishaps ruined the entire day. And now I'm just stuck doing nothing. I've just been, indulging in the consumer mindset. Okay. Which brings us to the topic of this video, the consumer mindset. This is more of a precaution, especially to those who, consume every day. And look, I would say that I'm an avid producer, although I do make mistakes, okay? But basically, let's just go through it. There's three types of people, okay? And you are one of these three. Let's start from the worst, okay? First of all, first people are just downright consumers. This is like most people, okay? Most people spend their time, they don't do anything. These people like to consume TikTok every hour, right? They watch Netflix shows all the time. If they're a male, they game. If they're a female, they probably binge shows or whatever. These people hate being bored. Okay, if they feel bored, it's like the worst thing to them, and they will always make sure to avoid boredom. Okay, and they'll always try to entertain themselves. This is most people. Okay, you know who these people are. Okay, they're the type of mongs where, on Snapchat they send you on delivered so they can brag. And then there's the second type of people. This is your 50-50%. 50% of the time they're consuming. The other 50% they're doing something useful, like having hobbies. Because the last people we spoke about don't have hobbies. These people do, however. So they too consume a lot of TikTok. They probably binge watch a bunch of Netflix shows. They probably game all day. However, they do have hobbies, okay, because either their parents raised them right or they were just curious. I used to be one of these people, okay? I used to be one of these people. In fact, I used to be all of them. Anyway, these people are okay. And then there's, by the way, if you're this type of person, okay, the 50-50 percenters, you need to become this third guy, okay? The third guy is the producer, okay? He does not spend much time consuming. There may be some times where it's consuming, like for example, I just wasted an entire day. Wow, hurrah me. Or an actual better example is that usually on a good day, past 5 p.m. when all the work's done, maybe I'll consume a little bit, but that's it. The producer is hard at work all the time. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, here's the thing. Human beings used to not be such avid consumers, okay? Consumerism is a modern thing, and we are well aware of this because we talk about it all the time. But here's the thing. Consuming isn't good for you. Wow, who could have guessed? But no, seriously, the three addictions or the four addictions that people like to cope with, okay, like for example, if you went up to like a dude who smokes cigarettes, if you told him it was bad, he says, I know, man. He knows, okay, he accepts it. But for these four people, they'll always cope, okay? They'll always cope and tell you that, no, what I'm doing isn't bad. Okay, so what are these four people? One, pornography addicts, okay? You've probably been there. You've probably been like, no, it's not bad for me, dude. It's perfectly good. And to those people, you need to stop saying that, okay? I'll come to your house and slap you. Not on the cheeks, but on the face, because you'd like that, you loser. Number two, shows, okay? Yes, watching shows are bad for you. It has the same effect that TikTok and YouTube does, mainly YouTube. You watch the thing, it fries your brain. It changes the way you act, changes your identity. You don't do it, okay? Number three, electronic consumption through phones or social media. They cope about this because, it's just a part of their survival mechanism now. You can't stand being bored, so you just got to consume all day. And number four, I forgot what this one was, so you can blame me for forgetting. No, I actually forgot. unfortunately. Well, surely I'll remember. Whatever, who cares? It's the fourth one. You probably can guess. All right, but people cope with these addictions all the time, right? They'll always cope and be like, "No, they're good for me," but they're not. Okay, and the reason why I want to bring this up is because with these people who consume, they watch Netflix shows all day, they binge watch anime. Yes, I'm calling you guys out. Don't think that you're an exception because you watch a Japanese cartoon. They play video games all day. Oh yeah, I forgot video gaming. That was the fourth one. People cope with that all the time. It's bad for you, dude. Okay, I can tell you why. But all these things are bad. Now, why are they bad? Well, if you've seen these consumers where all they do is consume, I want you to think for a minute. Have they ever had an original thought in their lives? No. And that is because they can't stand being bored. When you're bored, you're supposed to think, okay? And I had this conversation with my friend, right? We're just talking about consuming. He admits that he's a bit of a consumer. I'd say he's more on the 50-50% thing where he consumes, but he also does produce a good amount. And I was talking to him and he said, I kid you not, when I am by myself, bored, with nothing to do, my mind lights up and ideas come out. And he is so correct. Okay. Of course, sitting down doing nothing and thinking isn't very productive. You're not getting your hands going, but thoughts will pop up and those thoughts will entertain you because you come up with ideas. Okay. And I do this every day. Just then I was, bouncing this ball around and thinking, and I came up with the idea to record this and, my own analysis about how this works. And that's the thing though. That's why these people have never had an original thought in their lives, because they never do this. They never want to be bored. Okay. So there's no room for them to think. Right? Instead they sit there and they're like, they're just scrolling, they're doing stuff, you know, and they end up being very dry, they're not creative. And you don't want to be like that. You've got to at least have a philosopher's mindset where you can sit there and think for like 30 minutes, okay? 30 minutes, just do that. 30 minutes, no distractions, and just think all day. Well, not all day, whatever. Just think for the whole 30 minutes. And unfortunately, this is just most people. Most people are hooked on bad habits because, the entire boredom dilemma. But if you're one of these people, this is some tips I'm going to give to you. One, have one of these, and not just any ball. Okay, I was watching an Alicia Long video. You know the high fumerus guy. He was speaking about how he had these hobbies that kept his mind going, and when you're in the flow of doing the hobby, your thoughts start coming up with different. Your thoughts start running. Okay, start coming up with ideas. And my version of that is just bouncing this ball around and trying to catch it. And I do that idly while I think. And you need these things as a man, okay? Your hobbies, okay, let's not include things like gaming. Throw that out of here. I will include music. You can play instruments. I do that too. But ideally, you want hobbies like this that you can idly do where you can think. Because what I'm trying to get you to do is to get you out of your room and actually start bouncing balls around or playing with yo-yos, whatever, who cares? So you can start thinking. That's the first thing, okay? Introduce more hobbies, and not just more hobbies, just find one that you can master. Okay, I do remember when I used to be an absolute loser at 14. I had nothing to do with my life besides game and jack off. Eventually, towards the end of the year, I pick up the bass, and suddenly, I have this new thing to do, and that's actually allowing me to be creative. I'm spending less time wasting my life away, and it actually did help me. But that's the first thing. Now, second of all, you need to challenge yourself. All right. So right now is March. Ramadan had just ended, but Lent is still going on, and I'm doing Lent because I'm a Christian. Okay. the Lenten practice that I'm doing is that I'm skipping breakfast, early eating lunch and dinner, skipping garbage foods. Okay, I'm not allowed to scroll on Twitter. I'm not allowed to do any garbage, uh, and it's been great. Okay, it's been fun. I've enjoyed challenging myself, but there's a reason why you want to do that. That's because when you look at a consumer, right, they never push themselves at all. The only time they'll ever push themselves is if their parents are like, there's an exam coming up, you need to start doing your schoolwork, bro. But that's it. Okay. Then past that point, they're just going to be absolute lunatics, not going to do anything with their lives. So that's why you need to push yourself with these challenges and these goals. Like, for example, I avoided technology for a week. Okay. There's a video up about that on my main channel. You can go watch it. I avoided using any tech, and I just spent my time sitting there thinking. It was boring. Like, I can tell you, it was very boring. You know, if you watch the videos, there's like hours I'm just sat there doing nothing. You know, but for some reason, when I think back on that time, it kind of makes me feel happy that I did that. Right? I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I abstained from technology for a full week. I'm glad I um, challenged myself because it feels fulfilling. You know, it feels fulfilling, and that's what you want. All right. Because in the end, when you do these quote unquote boring challenges, they actually push you, and that feels good. Okay. And once the challenge ends, it's kind of like putting a tight shoe off. You know, for example, when I ended that challenge, you know, it was so satisfying returning back to my computer. But then again, my eyes started burning. Like, it felt so weird looking at the screen. Anyway, um, which that's crazy, by the way. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, that's what I think Lent will be like as well. I'm gonna take the shoe off once it ends on Easter Day, and then suddenly I'm probably going to turn fat because I'm just eating a bunch. But yeah, you need to challenge yourself. Now, third of all, speaking of challenging yourself, I recommend that you just spend your time avoiding these things, not just avoiding them avidly, but at least spend like a week avoiding TikTok or Netflix. Because here's the truth, it's not good for you, as I already explained, but whenever I see these people who consume these things daily, it kind of just makes me wonder. Um, I don't know. It just makes me feel like they're motionless in a way. I don't know how to describe it. I'm just gonna skip past my words, but challenge yourself not to use them. Okay, for a week, and basically that's all I wanted to say when it comes to the things you must do. Now, now I'm going to talk about me for a minute, and then I'll be done. I never was okay. Look, I consumed from like my entire life up until like 2024, which is when I dropped everything and started working and focusing. But I spent, I kind of, besides the fact that I did spend a lot of my time consuming, it never felt good to me. I always was aware that it wasn't good. For example, I wasn't into watching shows. I never liked watching shows, which I thank God for, you know, giving me that reluctance, because I see a lot of people, like, I know a lot of people who are addicted to shows. Straight up, used to have a friend group, and I didn't create this. I joined it, right? These guys were avid movie watchers. That's all they would talk about. But I wouldn't know what they're on about, you know? I'd be like, huh? What are these guys talking about, you know? And they, they'll tell me, you need to start watching more movies so you have more things to talk about, bro, you know? Um, that just goes to show that I was never into that kind of stuff. Gaming, I wasn't really into gaming, although I was a heavy gaming addict. The reason why I say I wasn't into it was because I wasn't binging a bunch of different games. I only stuck to one. Okay. If you're in that RDS46 area, you know what I was talking about. You know, damn Roblox. Um, but I only really can't speak. I only really stuck to one. I didn't spend my time playing these other games. Like, have these chronic addicts, gaming addicts, who have like 5 different games on repeat. I don't know how you do that. That's just weird to me, but whatever. I wasn't into this stuff. Okay, yes, I was addicted to some of it, but you could tell that, it wasn't that entertaining, didn't feel fulfilling, and eventually I was bound to break out of it. Uh, and that's what I hope happens to you. I hope you just break out of this consumerism, because it's not good for you, okay? TikTok, nah. Netflix, don't watch any shows either. Okay. Anyway, I had to wear this because otherwise I was going to look Asian. Don't want to be doing that. The sun's in my eyes. Anyway, keep never quitting, bro.